With the current state of the manga, I think we have to acknowledge that Dragon Ball Super has developed a problem regarding its original antagonists, as now they repeatedly fail to match the quality of the iconic rogues gallery of the original series, or even come close to it. Now keep in mind that I did say developed, as initially the antagonists we got from Dragon Ball's Resurrection era were very promising, beginning with Beerus, the god of destruction, whose purple Egyptian cat design was an instant Toriyama classic. This was the first god in Dragon Ball history that wasn't just a plot device or mental figure to raise Goku's power level before becoming an irrelevant background character. Beerus is a god and is revered as such, actually managing to beat Goku in their godly battle at the edge of space, and became an instant fan favorite, as he feels like a natural evolution of the villains we got during the Z portion of the Dragon Ball manga. Then we got Hit from the Universe 6 tournament, who, unlike Beerus, was more of a callback to antagonists Goku and Co. would clash with back in the old school Budokai Tenkaichi days of Dragon Ball, like Piccolo and Tien, complete with Goku's pure martial artist spirit influencing him to become a more balanced individual. Not to mention, his cool, calm demeanor was perfect for that of a 1,000-year-old assassin, and his time-bending power set is one of the most unique in Dragon Ball. So from manipulating time to traveling through it, we got what may be the crowning jewel of Dragon Ball Super antagonists, or at the very least, my personal favorites, Goku Black and Zamasu. Watching these two walking, talking, narcissistic god complexes and their mission to wipe out all mortals was a sight to behold, as despite all their hypocrisy, they genuinely believed what they were doing was for justice. So watching Goku, Vegeta and Trunks knock them down a peg before they got wiped out by Zeno was oh so satisfying. Then after such a high, things took a nosedive as Dragon Ball Super began to squander the potential of its antagonists, starting with one of the most controversial and the last one for the Dragon Ball Super anime, Jiren the Grey. What frustrates me about Jiren is that being a superhero himself, he could have been a fun in-universe version of the popular Goku vs Superman, Goku vs Saitama matchup. What's Goku's issue with superheroes anyway? Not only that, his initial fighting philosophy was not just in direct opposition to Goku's, but arguably superior to it, as while Goku seeks to find out how strong he can get, Jiren initially sought out what lies beyond strength itself, meaning that in order for Goku to defeat him, he would have to transcend all that he is as a martial artist and tap into Ultra Instinct. But instead, Jiren's initial goal was retconned away for what I assume could only be bad writing, and was made into a boring mindset of strength is absolute. He was then given an awful cliche backstory nobody asked for, all before whatever goodwill his character had left was eviscerated when he threw a tantrum and tried to kill Goku's friends. So after the last anime antagonist, we got our first manga exclusive one, Moro, the Consumer of Worlds, who with a name like that also started off pretty interesting, sporting a unique design and power set for a Dragon Ball villain, being that of an ancient warlock goatman creature, along with a backstory intertwined with Dragon Ball's cosmic history, as his appetite for consuming planets put him at odds with the creator gods of Universe 7. Come to think of it, he's kind of like if Majin Buu and Babidi were one character. But as the arc went on, he eventually became a boring Cell clone, complete with looking like him, copying attacks, getting a Senzu bean from Goku, all before trying to tie his mortality to that of the Earth itself as a pathetic last-ditch attempt at victory. And now for the man of the hour and the topic of this video, Granolah the Survivor, who, as much as I've tried to like him, it's become my genuine belief that he is in fact the worst canon Dragon Ball antagonist in the history of the franchise. Outside of a cool design and decent backstory, he disappoints in a way that a Dragon Ball antagonist never should, which is something that even Jiren and Moro managed to avoid. He feels like a passive character throughout his own story, with the moments where he does take charge being so badly written that the story feels contrived and suffers as a result. This is worsened by his surprisingly bland personality and half-baked, unconvincing, negative character arc. So throughout this video, I will be expanding on the issues I have with Granolah as a character. But don't worry, I know it's easy to criticize something without suggesting alternatives. Therefore, I will also be proposing changes that could have been made to strengthen the themes of his arc surrounding revenge, which would in turn make Granolah's characterization more compelling. Let's get into it.
You're locked into the cage. Granolah the Survivor, a sniper that misses the mark.
What makes Granolah's failure as an antagonist so frustrating is that initially he showed so much potential, making his debut in what I believe to be the best chapter the Dragon Ball Super manga has ever had. You see, following the defeat of Moro, the remains of a very powerful bio-android called OG-73 were left behind, which would be invaluable for anyone with aspirations of attaining power and influence. With these circumstances, it's no surprise that a bounty hunter would be after the android, looking to claim the reward. And this is where we meet for the first time Granolah the Survivor. Having our new antagonist appear in such an organic way was very well done by Toyotaro, as the arcs of Dragon Ball Super lacking in connectivity has been a point of contention by many Dragon Ball fans, myself included. In the following chapter, we see through a flashback how his character is involved with the greater history of Dragon Ball, and how that history would put him on a collision course with our protagonists, as his race was wiped out by Saiyans under the orders of Frieza. Naturally, this led to a lifelong feeling of deep resentment and emptiness regarding these two entities, believing that both are no more, meaning he has no avenue to seek vengeance. But this all changes when he hears news from the Heater Gang that Frieza has been revived, and in one panel we see the vengeful madness that resides within Granolah. But soon after, he's reminded of his place in the universe and that he would be no match for Frieza. With this introduction, I found Granolah to be a sympathetic and relatable character. Not that I'm a fellow red-eyed, edgy anime boy whose tribe has just been wiped out, but the fact that he's frustrated that he lives in a cold, uncaring universe where the powerful can commit atrocities and get away with it, and he can do nothing about it. This got me interested in his story and how his resolve would grant him the power he so desperately desired. And yeah, power was granted to him, that's for sure. So long story short, Granolah wishes on a set of Dragon Balls to become the strongest warrior in the universe. Now, to be fair, this in of itself is not a bad idea. The name of the series is Dragon Ball. The conflicts of the series often center around these titular wish-granting plot devices, but the way it's done falls flat, as it fails to add any depth to Granolah or tension to the story. You see, Granolah just so happens to have a friend who's a Namekian and who is connected to a set of 2 Dragon Balls. Already, this is kinda weird, as there are 7 Earth Dragon Balls, 7 Namek Dragon Balls, and 7 Super Dragon Balls. It's likely Toyotaro did this for pacing reasons, as the Moro arc ran for, 2 years? Anyway, one is essentially already in his possession, while the other is seemingly hopelessly lost. Until it's found and reported on the news just in time for Granolah to see it, and then in a matter of 2 pages, Granolah steals it and bam, both Dragon Balls are acquired, and just like that, it's wish granting time. You see, it's just too rushed and misses out on what could have been a great part of Granolah's antagonist story. seeing just what levels of depravity he would succumb to just to achieve his goal. For an example, take Cell for instance, who in his quest for perfection travelled through time itself, lived in the shadows, feeding on humans, threw away his pride to flee from battle, blew up entire inhabited islands, and even begged and pleaded with Vegeta, showing his resolve to the audience and that he would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. I think what could have worked well instead is Granolah's Dragon Ball hunt could have worked as the start of his negative character arc, as the obsession of revenge begins to rob him of his good nature. Although yes, he does lie and steal to gather both Dragon Balls, this is a very shallow, tepid moral dilemma. Instead, I would keep the number of Dragon Balls on Planet Cereal as 7, as per usual, and keep how he acquires the first 2 as they are, starting with a little lie to a friend to some harmless burglary for the second. But it would be in collecting the remaining 5. This would naturally lean into his profession as a bounty hunter, with him following leads, rumors, and haggling for information. But while doing so, he finds himself in situations where he resorts to increasingly violent acts to get his hands on them, as rumors of the orb's magical properties have spread amongst some of the Shigarian population, leading to some being less willing than others to give up their Dragon Ball. In reaction to this, Granolah goes from petty theft to threatening people, assaulting them, holding them hostage, all leading up to the last Dragon Ball, where Granolah is so caught up in the idea that his revenge fantasies will finally come true that he outright kills for it when facing resistance, managing to justify it by saying to himself that he will wish them back someday after he gets his vengeance. Going back to the actual manga, it does try to remedy its uneventful Dragon Ball hunt by giving some stakes and drama to the wish itself, as the dragon states that in order for it to grant the power Granolah desires, he must dramatically shorten his lifespan. This condition here is a plot point with a lot of potential to create a sense of tension within the story and display Granolah's insane resolve to the audience. But Toyotaro completely misses this opportunity by having Granolah's lifespan reduced so that he only has 3 years to live. This is just far too long, so long in fact it may as well not exist at all. Such a time span will have no bearing on the story, and it doesn't appear as though Granolah has sacrificed all that much to the audience. Who's to say that in those 3 years he couldn't just regather the Dragon Balls and wish himself back to normal? Going back to my alternate version of events, I would have made it so Granolah wasn't left with years but mere days, 3 max, as the price for such a ridiculous power-up should be as ridiculously steep. We have a character who may not even be Namek Saga level in terms of power, going all the way to God tier in an instant. I would have Granolah initially falter upon hearing he would only have days left to live, and consider wishing the person he killed back to life instead, thus abandoning his plans for revenge forever. Just for him to declare that he's come too far to turn back now, and he accepts the terms. This would have been Granolah's moral event horizon. At this point, there's no longer a level of moral ambiguity to his actions. Vengeance is all that he is. A small thing that bothered me in the manga is that when Granolah gets his wish, nothing about him permanently changes in terms of aesthetics. Like sure, he gets that long hair, which may itself just be a reference to Gon from Hunter x Hunter when he had all his potential unleashed at the cost of his lifespan, or one of Toyotaro's many references to the original manga, in this case Super Saiyan 3 Goku's debut appearance. But then he just cuts it off anyway and that's it. Like, I know it wasn't executed in a way I found compelling, but even so, by only having 3 years left to live, Granolah has abandoned a healthier mindset of letting things go, and instead has given his life away for the sake of vengeance, and having this reflected on his person is a great opportunity for some visual storytelling, as his singular goal should permeate every aspect of his being. Like if Toyotaro did in fact take inspiration from Gon with Granola's long hair, he should have lent into that more. Like, look at how Gon goes from a child to an unsettling form of an adult who shouldn't even exist yet. But to be fair, it doesn't have to be that extreme. Looking back on Dragon Ball's past, let's take Majin Vegeta for example, as this was when Vegeta gave in to his worst impulses of pride and retribution, going back to his evil ways. See, he doesn't look drastically different from how he did before, but just the addition of those unnatural looking veins, the thicker outlines around his eyes, and that creepy M mark on his forehead conveys to the audience that Vegeta has gone down the path that he shouldn't have. For Granolah, I would have it so here is where he gets his second Sharingan activated and gets another red sniper eye, along with having those Majin Vegeta evil thicker outlines on his eyes. This is also where he would abandon Oatmeal, who all this time has been trying to talk Granolah out of his insane actions, and just for good measure he would crush the AI under his foot Cell style to Android 16, all before flying off to see the heaters for information on the whereabouts of Frieza. On that note, Granolah's meeting with the heaters in the manga brings up another issue I have with Granolah's power-up. His dull personality doesn't change at all. He's just gotten the powers of a god, but in his meeting with the heaters, he's sputtering like a teenager whose parents won't let him go to a party. Although, yeah, I'll admit, when he does beat up some of the heaters, that was kinda cool. But all that credit is immediately undone during his conversation with Elec. You see, Elec questions Granolah about how he got such a power-up. Initially, Granolah rightfully refuses to tell him so. He has all the power in this conversation. Then Elec just goes, "Nah bro, tell me." And then Granolah just tells him everything about the Dragon Balls and his wish, just for Elec to send him on his way with no information. With all the power in the world and on a quest for revenge, Granolah is still so boring. In my alternate version, this moment here would have made for a great establishing character moment for post-Wish Red Eyes Granolah, where he would just kick down the door to the heaters' hideout and demand information on where Frieza is. He has days to live, with no time to waste. We keep his fight with the heaters the same, but with his confrontation with Elec, when Elec tries to stand up to Granolah, holding back information and demanding to know where Granolah got his powers, Granolah would just point his fingers to his head, charge a massive ki blast, and then threaten to destroy everyone then and there if he doesn't get any information regarding what he wants. This would show the audience Granolah is no longer second guessing, taking lives in order to get what he wants. Now this brings us to the reason I decided to make this video in the first place. Granolah's lackluster fights with Goku and Vegeta. Now don't get me wrong, they look cool and have some nice moments in them, but they ultimately feel as hollow as Granolah's character arc thus far, and that's because they're lacking in 4 qualities that make for a memorable fight: build up, tension, substance, and resolution. So let's break down why that is and how we're gonna fix it.
Part 1. Build up.
So, the events leading up to the fight were orchestrated by the Heater Gang, tricking Granolah, Vegeta and Goku into thinking that they're each other's enemies. Sure, narratively it makes sense, but it hurts the audience's investment in the fight, as we know both parties have no genuine reason to fight each other, and so there are no personal stakes to be excited for. This is why Toriyama loved to use the narrative device of Goku saving his friends just in time, as fans would be anticipating Goku's return and the retribution he would dish out on the antagonists for hurting his friends. Also, by having the heaters instigate the fight instead of Granolah himself, it denies him one of the best traits an antagonist has, which is making things happen, as they antagonize the status quo of their world and create a reason for the protagonist to oppose them. Instead, Granolah is made to look like a passive character in his own arc, as other characters do things for him. Going back to my version of events, I would kill two birds with one stone. You see, while Granolah is holding Elec at finger point, he would tell Granolah that from the footage they have recovered from OG-73 thus far, they saw Saiyans fighting for the Galactic Patrol. So Granolah, in his twisted mind, assumes that the Galactic Patrol have fallen into corruption, and so travels to patrol bases, destroying them, blasting patrol officers, and demanding that they get a message to the Saiyans that they work with, that they have 12 hours to meet him on planet Cereal, or else he will return and destroy the rest of them. This would culminate in a wounded Jacko sending word to Goku and Vegeta, who would then immediately make their way to planet Cereal. So just like that, our protagonists now have a personal connection with our antagonist, which would make the audience more invested in the fight that's about to ensue.
Part 2. Tension.
Just like his meeting with the Heaters, despite being the strongest in the universe, who sacrificed his lifespan to fulfill his quest of revenge, Granolah still comes off as a boring, whiny teenager when he confronts Goku and Vegeta. They try to talk to him, but he's all like, "I don't believe you, you work for Frieza, die." There is no entertainment value to be had in their exchanges. For the most part, it's like they're talking to a violent brick wall, and not the entertaining kind like Boly. What also doesn't help is that Goku and Vegeta are still doing the thing where they take turns fighting opponents while refusing to use teamwork because blah blah Saiyan pride. This tells the audience that Granolah can't be that much of a threat. This is why, although his appearance was brief, Raditz forcing Goku and Piccolo to team up left a strong impression on the audience that he was a major threat at the time. So returning to my version, I would have it so when Goku and Vegeta arrive at Planet Cereal, they encounter Granolah and just sense his ki, which at this point is just a maelstrom of insanity, rage, bloodlust and revenge, just pure unrelenting malice. Similar to, say, Monster Garou from One Punch Man. I would also fix Granolah's lines by just giving him one.
I could have sniped you Saiyans from light years away, but I wanted you to see the face of the Cerulean that will end your lives just as you ended my people's.
And without saying a word back, Goku and Vegeta enter their battle stances, both understanding they're facing off against a foe who can't be reasoned with words alone, and so the fight begins.
Part 3. Substance.
So Goku and Vegeta are now fighting a guy obsessed with revenge who wished to be the strongest in the universe. Why? What's the theme here? What story is this fight telling us? When an antagonist and protagonist clash, there should be an underlying meaning to it. A great example of this can be found in Gohan vs Cell. You see, Cell was made up from the DNA of Goku and all the major opponents he fought in his lifetime. Cell represented all that had come before in the Dragon Ball story, so by having Gohan defeat him, that was Akira Toriyama showing us that Gohan was the future of the franchise. Keyword was. Granolah's fight with the Saiyans almost had a similar level of depth, but for it to be fulfilled, Toriyama and Toyotaro would have had to make the unthinkable happen and let Vegeta actually defeat the main villain. Having Ultra Ego defeat Granolah would have made complete narrative sense, as Granolah's motivation for gaining his power is that he couldn't let go of the past. Meanwhile, Vegeta's Ultra Ego transformation comes from him letting go of the past and accepting training from Beerus, who ordered the destruction of his people. Having the power Granolah gained fixed to the time that he made it would have worked well as a metaphor for not being able to move on while the world moves on without you. And those that move on will grow while you stay static. So as the battle between Vegeta and Granolah rages on, the parts of the manga where Granolah causes destruction to the Shigarian city and the Cerulean ruins are kept, but made much more severe, as this would serve for a stronger
Part 4. Resolution.
In the manga, the fight between Granolah and Vegeta ends with both sides looking kinda pathetic. With Granolah willing to die just so he can kill Vegeta, I guess screw getting to Frieza, the actual mastermind behind the destruction of your people, and Vegeta willing to let Granolah kill him and all the Ultra Ego stuff just being Carter. Like, yeah Vegeta, just leave your wife and children behind bro, don't worry about it. But that's broken up by a flashback from the old Namekian, Monito, and to keep a long story short, good guy Bardock saved Granolah's life, and Monito let Granolah work for the people who killed his mother for decades. So Granolah doesn't learn any lessons about letting revenge warp his life, instead his obsessive rage was just misplaced. And even in chapter 78, he still feels like a passive character in his own arc, as other characters continue to make too many decisions for him. Going back to my version, there's no flashback here. Vegeta just knocks some sense into Broly, like when Gogeta slapped Broly so hard his pupils came back. So with some sense restored, Granolah finally appreciates the damage he has done, the people he has killed, and even the ruins of his home are no more. In the battle, it has been reduced to ashes. Granolah feels his keys start to drop. He knows the end is near and just asks for Vegeta to let him die while he regrets all the mistakes he's made. But Vegeta feels some level of pity for him and briefly remembers his margin fall from grace. He gives Granolah a genuine apology for what the Saiyans did to his people, but then grabs him by the scruff of the neck, swearing he will use Earth's Dragon Balls to undo Granolah's wish so that he may spend the rest of his natural life atoning for what he has done. But if he trains naturally and gains enough power to take out Frieza, he'll turn a blind eye to it. So to conclude, I think giving Granolah a devastating negative character arc wherein he is completely consumed by vengeance, losing his grip on morals and reality, only to be beaten by Vegeta, a character who went through a positive character arc during the original series, thus allowing him to gain power, eclipsing Granolah's by letting go of vengeance. So the theme of the arc here would be, it takes true strength to let go of the past rather than cling to it. So you may have noticed that I gave the Heater Gang less to do in my version. Well, that's because although it's nice to have some Dragon Ball villains who value intel over blowing everything up, I feel that they took away too much agency and spotlight away from Granolah, who I truly believe had the potential to carry a shorter arc by himself and join the ranks of Goku Black, Beerus and Frieza as one of Dragon Ball's better antagonists, all while leaving the door open for him to become a recurring character as he atones for his sins throughout the Dragon Ball universe. So if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Let me know any of your thoughts on anything I mentioned in the video, anything Granolah, anything Dragon Ball, anything Vegeta. So please leave a like and subscribe, as making this video may have killed me. This is your Critical Anime Guide signing out, and stay locked into the cage.